Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Welcome aboard. Tonight is Thursday, August 8th, 2024. This is live show 1084. If you're not familiar with the show, normally, we don't take ourselves all that serious around here. Just kind of hang out, joking around, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will usually pontificate on a topic related to our hobby, which I'm going to be doing that tonight. But it's actually a pretty serious topic that I'm going to talk about this evening. So it's not going to be as, kind of silly and goofy as usual. So I do want to point that out. There are a couple of other things that I'm going to point out in just a moment as well. But please keep in mind, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on YouTube. And you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for, I believe right now, it's 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a comment, a question, you want to take part in this topic tonight, by all means, I welcome your input as long as it is respectful, not just to me, but to each other. By all means, fire away. I will probably not be referring to chat as often as I normally do. So right off the bat, if I don't say hello to somebody in chat, like I normally do when people pop in, I do apologize. But first of all, let's see who we have. First out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. We've got Keithulu, Semper Buffo, Gleeman RX is with us, or Gleeman 1. You know who you are. Lord Cost 2000, 245 Trioxin, Joshua Parker, Testy Trekkie. Mike is with us, as is Chris Burkhart. So tonight, you may have noticed, because I do have a sponsor this month, I'm not mentioning the sponsor. So the sponsor's item is not behind me tonight. Just like there's no news portion of the show tonight, there is no tabletop gaming news tonight. And the reason why I decided to do the show this way, which is very unusual, I don't normally do this. I don't want anyone to insinuate that the people I talk about with the tabletop gaming news or this month's sponsor in any way, shape, or form agree with the thoughts I'm going to share tonight. Because some of the things I'm going to have to say this evening are probably going to be a little controversial. It's probably going to piss some folks off. Might piss some of you off watching right now. I don't know. But I didn't want to just be like, oh, well, I'm sharing news from this company, and this company. And then our topic is the illusion of inclusion and diversity in tabletop gaming, because diversity and inclusion is an illusion in the tabletop gaming industry. And I'm going to talk about that tonight. And we are going to discuss if we really, truly do want our hobby to be welcoming to all, right? Open to everyone, that everyone is equally welcome to enjoy this hobby. Now, keep in mind, I'm not telling you that you need to invite everybody to your table in your home, because I think that is an issue that some folks think this is about, where it's like, well, there's, certain people because of my religious beliefs. And okay, great. Fantastic. We're not telling you, invite everybody into your home. But everyone should have a place in this hobby if they would like to have one. So anyway, that's why I'm not doing any tabletop gaming news, because I don't want any of these companies or our sponsor this month to be guilty by association by any stretch of the, imagination, right? So anyway, so we have quite a few people popping into chat. As I just mentioned a moment ago, I am not going to be referring to chat a ton tonight. By all means, keep the conversation going in chat. If you have something that you really feel is constructive to add to the conversation, by all means, please do. If somebody wants to share comments about wokeness and bullshit like that, I got to say, I'm going to ask our chat moderators to keep an eye out for that. I know the Madman happens to be one of our chat moderators. I believe the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D might be lurking in the shadows. So please keep an eye on that for me. So just mentioning that. All right. So tonight's topic came about from my visit to Gen Con 2024. And it actually began with the Dungeons and Dragons celebration that my best friend Elliot Miller and I attended on the 31st, the day before Gen Con kicked off. And there was a question and answer session. And remember, we weren't allowed to record anything. So I have to go off of memory. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase the question that was asked. And one of the questions was to the effect of, what is Wizards of the Coast doing to help promote people who are BIPOC? So people who are Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. That's BIPOC. As far as within Dungeons and Dragons, right? So Stephen from Roll for Combat is with us. He says, I was there too, so I can help you remember. So that was a question. Essentially, what is Wizards of the Coast doing to kind of give a leg up to those creators? And the answer was, and it was like most of the answers that we got during the question and answer session, it was mainly corporate speak. And I had to chuckle because there were a lot of people who were in the audience who, we were getting these answers to questions and they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're not telling you anything. They're talking, but they're not telling you anything. And the answer we got from this question was kind of the same. So the answer was that Wizards of the Coast uses this essentially a digital clearinghouse company that works specifically with BIPOC artists. So what Wizards of the Coast would do is they would say, hey, okay, we're looking for something like this. And then this company provides them with various different images. Wizards of the Coast has no idea who these people might be. They don't know the names, anything like that. And then they're like, oh, okay, so, we like this. We'd like to use this. We'd like to use this. And we would like to use this. I mean, essentially, that's what they were saying. And Stephen from Roll for Combat, I believe, can attest to that. That was, in essence, the answer that we received. So the reality is, There was no answer. So Wizards of the Coast wasn't really doing things to help promote creatives who are, looking to get their foot in the door, right? So here was the other thing too. And I'm not throwing Wizards of the Coast under the bus. They just happen to be an example of the issue that I think we currently have on hand. And Wizards of the Coast loves to talk the diversity game, the inclusion game, and then they roll out all the movers and shakers for Dungeons and Dragons, and every single one of them is white. And there were 5 people that they had out there talking about Dungeons and Dragons. 2 of them were tech types with the Project Sigil or Operation. No, I think it's Project Sigil, not Operation Sigil. Then we had Chris Perkins. So we actually had 6. We had Chris Perkins. We had Jeremy Crawford. We had Greg Tito, who is like their PR guy. And then sadly enough, I don't remember the woman's name who they had recently brought on to run D&D. Whiter than white. Okay, I mean, once again, like I'm saying, not trying to throw Wizards of the Coast under the bus. They're an example of just about every tabletop gaming company, unless it's a tabletop gaming company that's owned and operated by a person of color or persons of color. So that was the first thing that got me thinking, right? So I was kind of like, yeah. Steven says they really didn't answer much unless it was very simple, clean answer. And there were not. There were not many. Once again, hello to everybody who's popping on into chat because of the format of tonight's show and the topic I'm talking about. I'm not going to be referring to chat very often, but I do want to welcome everybody on board. So thank you for stopping on in. So next day, it's Thursday. Ellie and I make our way to the convention center, and we're walking through the convention center. And I jokingly said to Elliot, my God, the diversity of this event is stunning. And he just started laughing because everyone was white. Okay, not 100% everyone, but 99.2% were white. And I was like, okay. So I had to laugh. There's a photograph, I believe it was the Indie Star, used the photograph. They took a photograph. In fact, I think if you do a search on Google for Gen Con 2024 crowd, you will see a picture of this image. It is a young Asian woman with a white guy. They look like they're together. And they're just surrounded by a sea of white folks. So it's like, okay. At one point, we were walking through, I want to say, I think it's Hall D, that they do some of the gaming for the various different companies and that. And it's just, just tables all laid out. And there was a little black kid, and he was probably maybe 10 years old. And this kid was just having the best time. We make fun of like commercials and stuff where they show a kid like going, ah, yeah. Or like we see like photographs of gamers and they're like, it's like, nobody's like that. They're not like that at the game table. So this little guy was having like a blast. So I noticed a photographer taking his photograph. And they had a rig where it was, okay, this is somebody, they work for some publication. So they were obviously taking the kid's photograph. And as I'm walking, the photographer finishes taking the photograph, and then another photographer popped up to take the same kid's photograph. And I thought, are you like searching for like kids of color who are here at the convention? I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So it got me to kind of thinking. And plus, I will point out that in all of the convention interviews I have done over the years, everyone I have interviewed has been white outside of Chris Spivey. And I've done a lot of interviews over the years. So, in chat, there's a point where what's the demographics of the city where this takes place? That might be a correlation. I must point out, Indianapolis, as far as a population, has a far, far larger percentage of non-Caucasians than Gen Con did. So, and I'm sure people will point out, oh, well, it's, the cost of going to conventions and things like that. No, bullshit. Because I went to Comic-Con, and San Diego Comic-Con is a far, far more expensive convention, which actually gets you far, far less entertainment, in my opinion, for your dollar for the average convention goer, because the vast majority of people who go to Comic-Con never get into Hall H because they have to spend the entire day before camped in line just to get in. So if you wanted to get into Hall H on a Friday, guess what? Thursday morning, you're parked outside Hall H in line, and you're going to spend all day, all night into the next morning. So anyway, I'm thinking to myself, what's up here? Because we've got so many companies out there who are, pushing this whole inclusion, diversity angle. But the reality is they don't practice it themselves. Yet they will sit and talk about how people like myself don't belong in the hobby anymore. I mean, not me personally, but people like me, older, straight white males. Oh, they can't leave the hobby fast enough, right? But the thing is, we are not actually seeing a movement of more diversity and inclusion in our hobby unless you're white. So you've got, as far as taking a look at Gen Con, and there is, Shoner says more blacks coming to Comic-Con because it's not role-playing game related. I don't think not being role-playing game related doesn't equate. Maybe because it's comic book related and really movie related. It's pop culture related, truly. Comics tend to be kind of the pretty small nowadays. But Shoner says they did a costume parade at Gen Con, around 800 people, 5 were black. Yeah, I believe that. Kevin R. Smith says, Watsy's been called on the carpet about systematically practicing structural racism, also doing the diversity talk. See, I come from an era, I grew up with the phrase, money talks, bullshit walks, right? So put your money where your mouth is. Actions speak far louder than words. And yes, like I said, I'm not trying to throw Wizards of the Coast under the bus. There are a lot of larger gaming publishers, and we're not just talking about tabletop role-playing games. We're talking board games, too. You go take a look at Asmodee and take a look at the covers to some of their games, and then have them roll out the powers that be, and we're going to see something. But as far as the inclusion of LGBTQIA+, I think the community is doing a really good job with that. If you are white, just like I had mentioned Elliot, I said, if you look around, there are a lot of women. And they're not all just here because their boyfriend dragged them along or their brother dragged them along or their dad dragged them along. A lot of those attendees were there because they wanted to be there. So as far as growing the hobby outside of the white males, the white females, and the alternate lifestyle folks, we're doing pretty good if you're white. So this is what I'm really curious about. And this isn't like a rant. I'm not like mad at anybody. I'm truly curious because, myself personally, I want this to be as welcoming and inclusive a hobby as we possibly can have, right? Yes, I understand. There are some elements in this hobby that just want people like me to go away. Just like those same elements want to tell us how people like me gate-kept other people out of the hobby during the 80s and 90s. And the people who want to tell us this weren't even alive. They weren't even drawing breath. So for them to accuse white men of cock-blocking gamers, essentially, who were not white men, I'm not saying that those things didn't happen. Those things happened, but not to the extent that some of these elements want you to believe so that they make, the straight white male, the bad guy, the boogeyman. Ooh, Jeff's going to come in the middle of the night. He's going to steal all your 20-sided dice. No, I am not. I have enough 20-sided dice. Thank you very much. So, I got to point out, to be honest, I didn't even notice what the publisher was. But there was a publisher, they had a board game, and it had like princesses on it. And all the princesses appeared to be black or, dark complexion, whatever. And I just happened to look to see, oh, well, who's working this booth? And everybody was like as pasty as can be. And I was like, people know when they're being pandered to, right? We see it all the time. We see it with advertising on television. I have family members say to me, they're so sick and tired of TV commercials because as far as advertisers go, 1/3 of America is gay. 1/3 of America is engaged in interracial relationships. And the other third of America are like the same race, but they're like 75 years old. It's like those are the three relationships that exist out there these days. And I kind of laugh because it's like we all see that. We all go, yeah, okay. We see what's going on. So as far as nowadays we see stuff where, God forbid, that you would see a white male who appears, the character design would appear like they're straight on the cover of a role-playing game book. I mean, that's sort of like, ooh, no. We don't do that. Those are the bad guys. We're not going to do that. And the funny thing is, it's probably going to take people like me to actually drag these fucking companies out of the Stone Age and make them practice what they preach. So if there's any sports fans out there, as an example, the NFL. was like, okay, we need to have more diverse hires and give people a chance to succeed and give them opportunities that they have not had in the past simply because of the color of their skin. And thankfully, I can say, amazingly enough, the Chicago Bears have a black GM. They've not been, real big on black quarterbacks in the past, but it's kind of like, no, I'm kind of proud of the Bears for doing that. And it's the same sort of thing here in tabletop gaming, right? So all these companies, they want to talk about how diverse they are and how, they're really pushing for giving people chances, regardless. And the reality is they don't. So the question I kind of have is, so what do we do? So obviously, and yes, I get it, Gen Con is just one convention, but I guarantee if you went to Origins this year, probably the same breakdown as far as racial numbers, right? When I go to Game Hole up in Wisconsin, yes, it's Wisconsin, probably going to see the same kind of numbers there. I think if you were to go to just about any organized gaming convention, it is going to really skew massively to white males. So, white males are buying the products for the most part. They make up the majority of the consumers buying these games. And I know from what I hear from people, they're getting a little tired of being told that, they ought to get out of the hobby and they're bad people and all these other things. And it's like, well, we're the guys who took you to the dance. We paid for your prom dress. We picked you up. We gave you a corsage. We drove you to the school dance. And now you're like, hell with that guy. Nah, that doesn't fly. That does not fly. And so Death Angel's Shadow says, you can't eliminate racism or sexism by being racist and sexist against your largest group of consumers. And I'm not like sitting here saying, oh, yeah, you've got to completely revamp how you do business. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is we should have a real conversation, or these companies should have a real conversation about making this an inclusive hobby. Okay. So is it possible that culturally, like, I'll be very honest, like Hispanics, I don't see a lot of Hispanic gamers. And I really never have. Although my good friend Louis in Arizona, his family's Mexican. And I mean, they all game to some extent. It's all board games. Never tried to get Louis into role-playing games. I bet his sons would have gotten into it. But is it just because culturally it's just not something that's on the radar? Is that part of it? I don't know. The other thing, too, is when we hear about, how folks like me were gatekeepers, it's sort of like, okay, so do you people realize that playing Dungeons and Dragons wasn't a cool thing? And if you were playing games that weren't Dungeons and Dragons, that were even more obscure to the average person on the street, it was worse. See, I don't think a lot of these people who accuse white guys of keeping them away from the game table realize that we were desperate for anybody to play with us. So I know I've seen some comments from people saying, hey, you know what? It was religious groups that came down really hard on us. We lived in the Bible Belt, so it was nearly impossible to find anybody that you could play role-playing games with. So we weren't being gate kept by gamers. We were being kept out by our religious groups and the pressure that they put on their parents to not buy the stuff, or if the kids came home with it, to throw it away and stuff like that. I hear a lot of that. And once again, as I mentioned before, I believe people when they say, hey, you know what? We wanted to play and we weren't welcome. I believe them. All I'm saying is that it wasn't as rampant as people want to make it out to be. And many of the people who claimed that these things were going on weren't even drawing breath. So how the fuck can they tell you these things happen and it's just all secondhand or third or fourth or so on? Yeah, stories build from that. Well, they said we couldn't play. Oh, they were telling me that these guys said they couldn't play. Oh, yeah, okay. Hey, I heard that this guy heard from somebody else that they were told, if they came by the table, they were going to light them on fire. Really? Hey, I heard these guys got lit on fire because they wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. Kevin R. Smith says the huge role of churches in African-American society may very well have played a role. That's very possible. So we don't own game companies. I don't think anyone watching. Okay, wait a second. There is one person watching who does. Stephen from Roll for Combat. So for the most part, the question then becomes, what can we as gamers who want to be ambassadors of our hobby to everybody, what can we do? So the first thing that I would recommend, and once again, I'm going to point this out, I am not telling you that you need to have people at your own personal game table in your home or friend's house or wherever that's private to you. You don't need to have anybody you feel uncomfortable with at your game table. You don't. But if you game in public, if you go to your friendly local game store, hopefully they are a friendly store. If you go and game there, then you have to be open to play with anybody and everybody. Because just like you've got the right to sit there at that table and try to have a good time, everyone else has that same right who walks into that store. So one of the first things that I would recommend is, treat everybody like a relative you like when you're at a friendly game store or at a convention or whatever, when you're not at your own personal table. I say it all the time. You're in the privacy of your own home. Have whatever fun you want as long as nobody gets hurt, nobody gets an eye poked out, nobody's feelings are hurt. Y'all want to play maids and stuff? Okay, go ahead, enjoy. Y'all want to play anthropomorphic rabbit maids? Okay. You know what I mean. So that's one of the things. Something else I think that some of these game companies need to do is they need to talk to people who have been in this hobby, people of color who have been in this hobby for quite a while, and not just creators, right? So as an example, talk to Mike Pondsmith or his son Cody Pondsmith, and for some reason I think Mike Pondsmith's daughter is, I think she's a creator with Cyberpunk Red. I might be wrong. some of these companies need to have a conversation, say with, like I said, Mike or Cody, and ask, first of all, like Mike Pondsmith, what got him into the hobby? What brought him into the hobby as a player, as a gamer? And what has kept him in the hobby as a gamer? Because I guarantee he has put up with a lot of shit from people. Same thing. Talk to his son, Cody, and find out, what is it that brought you into the hobby? Because it sure as shit wasn't not having white guys on the cover of a game book. That wasn't it. So there is that. Talk to Chris Spivey, who created Haunted West, is his standalone game, which I have reviewed, really good. I've interviewed Chris in the past. Of course, Harlem Unbound for Call of Cthulhu is absolutely fantastic. And Chris is just good people. Talk to him. Ask what stumbling blocks have there been? Because I guarantee there have been many that he's overcome to become a very well-regarded game creator. Talk to them. Talk to Candace over at Board Game Geek, who does a lot of videos in that. What got her into board gaming? What keeps her in the hobby? You also have that outlet. Sorry, I don't know their names. I know of them. Once again, as I pointed out, I don't watch other content creators, and it's nothing against them. It's just, I don't have time. I try to remind people that my main job in life is taking care of my dad. It's not this. So this kind of stuff, this is like free time stuff. Isn't it Our Family Plays? Isn't that their outlet? They seem like really nice people. Same thing. Talk to them. Find out, what brought them into the hobby. I'm gonna guess it wasn't like artwork on a box or artwork within a game book. I don't think that's it. And I think, in my opinion, taking the approach where it's like, okay, so we're going to make sure that we kind of cover all the bases with all of our artwork is lazy. Because it's really not addressing what we're talking about, right? It's just a lazy fucking way of approaching it and being like, well, what are you talking about? We're all for diversity. We want inclusion. Look at our artwork. But fuck those white guys. Get out of here. Get out of the hobby. See, that's something else. You can't claim to be all about inclusion and then out of the other side of your mouth, talk about how white men need to get out. That doesn't work. It's just not conducive, right? Gotta, send your argument down in flames. So that's something else that I think needs to be done. Companies need to talk to people who are within the industry, even if they don't work for their company. And maybe they're even outside of their realm of products, right? So, if it's a role-playing game company, why not talk to a BIPOC board game creator and discuss, what are stumbling blocks that you've had to face? What are things that have continued to keep you in the game, right? Because it's so easy to just be like, oh, enough. I give up. I throw my hands up. I guarantee a lot of people of color who have tried to get into the hobby as creatives have done that, been like, that's not worth it. It's just not worth it. We also have to kind of wonder, is it just a cultural thing too? That, people like comic books, people like superhero movies, people like video games. Maybe they just don't necessarily get into board games or role-playing games. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's just I really do think the hobby's failing at this. And I don't know about you folks watching this. I'm sure there's folks who are going to watch this and be like, good. I am a gatekeeper. And you can be a gatekeeper in your home. That is completely well within your rights. But outside the home, somewhere else, no, you do not have the rights to gatekeep people from what is a fantastic hobby that I have enjoyed for far more many decades than I want to admit, right? So I've been playing board games longer than I've been playing role-playing games, so probably 44 years. And I'm not talking hi-ho cheerio. Shoner says, I gatekeep, only role players allowed in my games. Anyway, so if you were tuning in tonight thinking it was all just going to get all pissed off, he's going to go on a rant. Like, this is going to be great. Quick, what's that a reference to? Quick. Who's gonna guess that? Sorry to disappoint you. But I did want to mention, all this talk about inclusion, diversity from all these various different game companies and that, it's bullshit. It is. It's very little effort. It's low effort. And it's nonsense. It's not doing anything to grow the hobby away from the people who've been here all the time. I mean, it's maybe got a tiny little impact, but we need to do more. And if it's not going to be game companies that do it, then we have to be the ambassadors for our hobby. That's now our responsibility. Because we know in the end, the only color that the vast majority of the bigger corporations in the world care about is the color green. Now, of course, when I'm talking about like game companies and that, the vast majority of them are like 3 people. So it's not like, well, okay, so you're going to have to fire your brother. But these companies also have to get away from, we hired a cultural consultant and a diversity manager who they said they played Risk once and Monopoly a couple of times. So it's like, yeah, come on board. It's like, no. Okay, so there you have it. That is pretty much what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that, strangely enough, it seems almost as if the folks who some elements of our hobby feel we can't get out of this hobby fast enough might be the ones who have to be the people who actually do make this as inclusive and welcoming a hobby as these game companies claim they want this to be. Chris Lundgren is with us in chat. I apologize once again. I have not said hello to a ton of people in chat. Usually I take time out, but I didn't want to suddenly be like, what the hell was I just talking about? Because that sometimes happens when I'm jumping into chat and I'm like, what the hell was the original topic? I mean, I know the topic, but all of a sudden it'd be like, So Chris Lundgren says, I think that we as a society would forget to keep teaching manners. Ooh, that's true. Also, a lot of those in the hobby lack good social skills. We are our worst enemies. I don't think and the weird thing is I've used the term before, social retardation. And that is like a technical term, right? I'm not saying somebody is, I don't think that's as bad as it once was. Now it still exists. Oh, yeah. Remember, Comic-Con, then Gen Con. Saw enough of it, right? But not as much. So W4 says it's not bullshit. It's a small start. You're right. It's the players that are responsible for growing the hobby. That's right. Because let's be honest, if you were playing a role-playing game and your game master, dungeon master, what have you, is just god-awful and you've never played one before, you're probably not going to be like, oh, man, I got to play that again. Kevin King says, Jeff seems to be laboring under the illusion that they actually care about what they say they care about. Oh, no, I don't. I don't have that illusion. I thought I was just dispelling that. Did I not? Did I not get that point across? Wow, I really failed then. Michael Connor says, you sound like you're claiming grievance that never happened. Who cares what the hero looks like? I am not a dark Sumerian and never will be. Nah, I'm not sure where you're going with that, Michael. Michael Connor says, bunch of grievance and diversity types in chat pushing what is destroying the hobby and society. Okay, well, I see what side of the fence Michael's on. Shark says you don't see the Monopoly game crying about people playing Monopoly. It's entirely up to you to invite people to play and offer to teach them. No one else needs to care or be bothered. W4 says, off-topic question. Who thinks Jeff is very tall? I was watching his Gen Con videos. He looked tall compared to his guests because I only interview short people. It's the, what would they call it? The Tom Cruise syndrome, right? Because isn't it supposedly that Tom Cruise would only work with actresses who were shorter than him? I don't know if that's still the case. I am about 6'1". I used to be a touch over 6'1", but I'm sure the years have gotten to me and dragged me down a little bit. So very possible, very possible. But yes, well, Jenny from Paizo Inc. was really short. In fact, it was kind of like, all right. Because what I'll do is I'll have Elliot stand in for me, and I'm about 3 inches taller than Elliot. So I have to kind of adjust for that and the hat. So that's a little bit more. So anyway, Fleming Aaron says, no, Jeff, you're standing on a milk crate, right? Yeah, that's part of the equipment I drag around with me is a milk crate to stand on, a metal one, because I don't know if I trust standing on a plastic one. Sister says they ran into me at the hotel briefly and say I'm average height. Yeah, I mean, 6'1" isn't all that tall. I don't claim to be all that tall. So all righty. Anyway, yeah, so I'm sure that, there'll be some folks. We already have folks in chat who are whinging. The reality is, and, I love the fact people tune in and watch videos on the channel and, you involve yourselves in chat and comment on the videos and stuff. But the reality is, the people who like to toss out hateful comments or just asshole comments, I don't fucking care. I really don't. I mean, I'll shoot back at you from time to time. And then I love when it's when I flame somebody back, they're like, oh, why are you so sensitive? Because you were a fucking dickhead to start off with. I don't know. Maybe that's why. And I'm not going to let you just sit there and be a dick. So anyway, so it's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you get off on it, enjoy yourself. So, all righty. Anyway, that's it. That's it for tonight. Short show, yes. I will be back to doing news and everything next week. Like I said, I thought the topic, some people might get pissed or completely disagree. And I did not want to include our sponsor for this month. And I didn't want to make companies that I do news pieces about people think that they were guilty by association or anything like that. See, that's it. Chris Lundgren points out they'll play games with anyone as long as you're not a dick. That's kind of it. That's the whole thing. I welcome pretty much anybody to my game table, but if you're an asshole, no. Sorry. You're going to be asked to leave. And it doesn't matter, what stripe you are. If you're just an asshole, it's like, see ya. All right. Anyway, if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, even if you're posting things I don't agree with, thank you very much. Because not only were you kind of keeping me company tonight, even though I was sort of ignoring chat. See, now, Steven from Roll for Combat has the exact right idea. They'll play games with everyone except for me. I'm with you on that. I wouldn't play games with me if I could get away with not playing games with me. So if you took part in chat, thank you very much. Of course, I know a lot of you out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live and take part in chat. Hey, I appreciate if you're watching live or on Memorex. There are nearly 2,000 videos here on the channel. In fact, we may have actually hit 2,000 because we were really close. I'll have to take a peek. And I appreciate any of you taking time out to watch any of these videos. Of course, when you're not watching these videos on YouTube, you can always swing on over and check out thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, do not forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I stream the Dispatch Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings live at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as this weekend's review of Role Player from Thunderworks Games. We enjoyed it. We played it. We played the hell out of it, actually, at Gen Con. So we enjoyed it. So you will see it get a positive review. Oh, yes. So everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day is in your neck of the woods. Of course, I will be back on Tuesday. I'm Jeff McAleer. And as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.